and welcome to another edition of the Mayor Dan Paletko Show. Today we're going to feature the disaster that we had with the August 11th storms, and I have as my guest a member from the Wayne County Emergency Management Team, and that's Daniela Elzayat.
Yes, Danielle Elzayat.
Elzayat, so I apologize. Who's also a resident of Dearborn Heights.
Correct.
And what we wanted to do is talk about what our residents will need to do in regards to the fact that the president has declared this an emergency disaster area. But before we start with that, Danielle, I do want to thank a few people who really came to the assistance of the city and I think did a great job. And sometimes when you start mentioning people, you forget people. And if I do, it's not going to be intentional, but obviously. But from the emergency management, Tim McGillivray,
McGillivray, yes, he's director.
The director, Samer Jaffer, who's a resident of Dearborn Heights, both of them gave this city a lot of support, a lot of assistance. So my appreciation to them. Our emergency manager, Bob Ancrap, Congressman Dingell, his office, and the assistance of FEMA and the state police. But locally, our police, our fire department, our DPW employees, on my staff, Beth, Stephanie, and Christina, everybody working together really did a lot to make a really bad situation better and controllable to many extents. So my thanks for all of their help and assistance and the help from your particular department. But right now, we're at a stage in which we've had the FEMA people at the South End Library registering people. And Daniela, can you tell us a little bit as to what residents need to do now that we have been declared a disaster area?
Absolutely. As you know, Mayor, on September 25th, President Obama issued a major disaster declaration for the state of Michigan, concentrating in those counties which suffered hardship due to the flooding, which would be Wayne County, Macomb County, and Oakland County. Here in Wayne County, we are concentrating on getting residents registered. They need to get registered in order to receive FEMA assistance.
And so we had people register with the city. They have put together a package that they need to separately contact FEMA by making a outreach to either Wayne County or to the city of Dearborn Heights is not enough. This now,
Correct.
to get included under the federal programs, they need to get registered with FEMA.
Absolutely, and I'm glad you mentioned that. What happened directly after the flooding, all of the people who registered within their city, that was part of what's called a preliminary damage assessment. That is all the information that we gather from residents and ask those residents who suffered any damage to come to the city and let their city know that they had flooding in their basement or some type of damage to their home, structure, property as a result of the flood. That is part of preliminary damage assessment. All of that information is collected, sent up to the state, which the state then sends to the federal government, letting them know this is the damage that was suffered in the area. That leads up to what we received on September 25th, the disaster declaration from President Obama. Now that we have that, those same residents who registered, and also it's very important to understand residents who haven't registered with their city, need to go online, need to call, which we'll give you this information. They need to get registered again, or if they have not done so at all since August 11th, they need to get registered.
Yeah, there's two processes here, at least two, but under state law and Public Act 222, residents who incurred damage or businesses had 45 days to contact their local community. And that is in regards to any liability that a governmental unit may have. So the information they've gathered, and many of them have included receipts and pictures and other things, and dropped that off to the city, that all qualified under Public Act 222.
Correct.
But this is separate and distinct. And it is one point you make, because we had two people came in after the 45 days and said, okay, we'd like to now inform the city. And we said, under Public Act 222, it's too late. But they're not too late for federal.
Correct.
So this is another opportunity. And so in essence, whether you have or have not filed with the city, you need to file with FEMA.
Correct. Absolutely. We want to get everybody registered with FEMA. Maybe the easiest way for residents to think of it is this is a new registration. This is not old. This is new. If you haven't registered, we need you to do so. If you have registered with your city, we need you to do so with FEMA. So this is FEMA registration.
And the other point that I'd like to make to people, and correct me if I'm wrong, but let's say that if you're a homeowner, it's pretty distinct that you are the one that incurred the damage and you should file. If you're a renter, the person doing the renting needs to file, as does the landlord, but a separate filing. They do not need to be filing together, and it's important that both parties file.
That is correct, because under FEMA individual assistance, both renters and homeowners are eligible. For instance, renters would be eligible for their personal property, whereas the homeowner would be eligible for
The structural
damage, any type of property damage
Yeah.
that occurred.
So, but I guess the easiest way to say this is, when in doubt, register.
Correct.
And because that will possibly make you available for programs and assistance. If you don't register, you're out of luck. So, and registering is not difficult, is it?
Not difficult at all. I actually registered myself. I registered on Friday. I received a house visit yesterday. Unfortunately, my husband and I both were not home because we were at work. What they did was left a notice on the door, gave us a number to call so that we could schedule a FEMA assistance person out to the house.
What kind of things does FEMA looking for? Are you aware of what? Because I went through the assessment and walked door to door with them, but what are they? Those were very quick interviews. They just wanted to get kind of a snapshot as to what the problem was, but these are more intensive?
They're a little more detailed than the preliminary damage assessment visits. These visits are more, it's your opportunity to explain more of what type of damage you had. If you have pictures from the flooding or any pictures you have from the damage, you're able to give those to the person there. If there's any type of structural damage that you want to physically show them, you can do so at that time. And it's basically more of an interview, and it gives you a chance to explain more of what happened to you.
So those, we were pretty detailed as what we requested under Public Act 222, but if you went through that process for the city and kept a copy, my guess is you probably have more than enough information to satisfy the FEMA people.
Absolutely, absolutely. You do. If you kept your photos, if you kept your information, your receipts.
Yes.
Of course, if you have sewer or drain backup, for instance, I have drain backup insurance, sewer and drain backup insurance. They want to see a copy of the policy to see how much is covered. Because, you know, you are eligible, if you are eligible for funding, you're eligible for funding for any amount that was not covered.
Very good
under
point.
Your policy.
Because when I went through with the assessment teams, that was one of the 4 or 5 questions I recall is, do you have any insurance to assist you in recovering part of your loss? And so you would need to get a copy of the insurance policies, you're saying that?
Yes, they
and
will.
the rider? Yeah.
They will most likely, if you do have coverage, they are going to want to see a copy of it.
Okay. So that would be an additional thing to have available when they come to make their visit.
Right.
And we can put it on the bottom of the screen, but the address, but there is an address to the website for FEMA?
Yes, the address is www.disasterassistance.gov.
Yeah, we'll put that on the bottom as our interview. So, and we'll show this more than once, so viewers at home will be able to, if they miss it, not panic, but the show will show various times in the next few days. So it'll give them another opportunity if they have a pen in hand.
Excellent. And there is also a telephone registration.
Okay.
So if those residents who don't have access to internet or computer can telephone in their registration, person will answer and ask them the same questions that are on the online registration. And that number is 1-800-621-3362.
And when I went down to visit in the library, there was a small business administration and 2 FEMA people. It's not a real lengthy interview. You're not going to be on for 20 minutes.
No, not at all. When I registered, it took me just a matter of minutes.
Yeah, and that's what I witnessed. They showed me the form of the registration, and in a few minutes you should be done.
Right. There is some information that they do want. You might want to have it handy if you're online registering or if you're telephoning in. They do ask for a bank account, routing number, and checking account number. I believe if you are eligible for assistance, you can opt to do a direct deposit into your account.
And for people who may not be familiar, in the Federal Reserve System, routing numbers is, if you tell them a bank name and your checking account, that's not sufficient. They need a routing number, which
Correct.
is an internal Federal Reserve thing. How do you get that number? If you call your local bank, they have those readily available.
Also on the FEMA website, they have a link you can click to actually get your routing number.
Okay, so it makes it easier.
They make it very easy.
Yeah, and I always, this CPA in me, but for security reasons, always be careful about numbers. A routing number is not a very meaningful number in regards to security, so it's easy to get bank routing number. It's your account number that's
Correct.
more, you got to be more concerned about. But the fact that you're dialing 1-800 or on their website, that's a direct link, and it's also a similar number many people give if they're getting a tax refund.
Correct, and I'm glad you mentioned that. We have a lot of residents who have called into our office and are leery of giving information. I would like them to remember that this is FEMA. This is the federal government. It's the Federal Emergency Management Agency. Most of the information that they have already, because they ask you a few security questions, so once you put in your name and your social security number, they know who you are. And those records, they have IRS records, so there are some security questions that they ask you. So I believe it is a secure site. I don't believe there's any reason for residents to be leery of giving that information.
Although, not correct, but they have access to the social security numbers, but no one has access to the Internal Revenue Service amounts. So,
no, not those
or
amounts.
numbers.
No, I just meant
Yeah.
information.
Yeah.
They do have your name, your
Right,
address.
right.
They
Yeah.
do have
That's
information.
the CPA in me, the technical
Social Security,
aspect.
yes.
Okay. So those are the kinds of things you need to have available. Couple common questions, so that hopefully people have not waited till this. We're doing this filming now in early October, but if you had damage in your house, you should have gone ahead, cleaned it up, repaired it. These are reimbursements of expenses in many cases, and so hopefully nobody waited and said, well, I want to get money first and then I'll clean it. That's not how the process
hope
works.
not.
Yeah, because there were a couple homes, even after a couple days, the stench and the disaster, I don't know how anybody could have stayed in those homes with the stench and the smell. So hopefully they've gone ahead and cleaned them up.
Absolutely. We hope that everybody has gone ahead and cleaned them up. For those residents who have not done that, when they register, there are some questions asking, were you able to stay in your home? I believe one of the questions is the damage still there?
Yeah.
They want to know.
Yeah, and we did have, I know that I probably talked to at least 20 different households in which those people were not able to stay in the home because of the extensive damage. And in most cases, they moved in with a relative, and
Correct.
that worked out very well for them. But you're right. This was the worst disaster in regards to flooding I had ever seen for the city of Dearborn Heights, and I've been around for a while and have seen and have witnessed ever since I was a little boy. First house that my family owned in Dearborn Heights flooded, I think, within 2 months after we moved in. So unfortunately, that is a risk for being a resident in this area.
Absolutely. On August 11th, we had 6.5 inches of rain fall within 2 hours. That is a hefty volume of water falling in a short amount of time. That's really what caused most of the problems. So,
Okay, so once they register with FEMA, the system it seems to be happening. Things are happening very quickly.
absolutely. I'll tell you what happened with me. We registered. If you provide an email address, or if you have a telephone and you are able to receive text messaging, they ask you for that information. So after registering, they have you set up a user ID and a password. So you set up an account with them, and this way you can keep checking to see status or progress on your claim. Right after registering, we received a confirmation email, confirmation text message, and like I said, the visit was just a few days later.
And since I've heard this from more than one person that lives in the city, but I've had 4 or 5 people already tell me they've gotten checks, so or checks or proceeds in their bank account. So it appears that the system is really responding pretty quickly.
I believe it's been successful so far.
Good.
We haven't heard of any problems.
That's excellent. That's excellent. Other things that we should cover for the public out there? Is there any?
Well,
aspect?
we've been getting a lot of phone calls in the office asking what exactly residents are eligible for. I do have a
Good point.
list. If
Yes,
you don't mind, I'll go
please,
over it.
because
Okay.
that's something that keeps coming up, and
There are a lot of questions. Some cities, some residents in cities believe that they're automatically getting a check for a certain amount, or I will let you know that FEMA may provide up to $32,400 for home repair. Any homeowner may apply. They can also apply for the Small Business Administration disaster loan
Yes.
for our small businesses. It covers structural parts of the home, windows, septic or sewer systems, other water systems, heating, ventilation, air conditioning systems. It also would cover utilities, or any types of appliances that you suffered a loss to, entrances, exits, personal property. All of this type of stuff is eligible. It also, I wanted to let them know that if you needed medical assistance, cleaning assistance that you had to pay for during the floods or as a result of the floods, this is eligible also. So if you still have those receipts, not necessarily that you absolutely have to have them, but you want to make sure that when the FEMA person comes out to visit your home, you let them know of all of the financial hardship that you had as a result.
Yeah, and I in my discussions with them, because some residents have asked some very technical questions of which I've not received a confirmation one way or the other, although we have some additional discussions and meetings going on with them. But we have some tri-level, bi-level homes. People were concerned. I think one of the items is you also have flood insurance, which is kind of separate and distinct. It's related, but not.
Correct.
This is a little different. So the guidelines in here, but people that have had flood insurance and they've been told, well, you cannot collect because we don't define that part of the house. We see it more as a basement. That does not, is my understanding, impact some of these particular rules that you just mentioned.
Right, and one of the things that they need to understand is flood insurance is only if you are in a designated flood zone. Sewer and drain backup insurance is any drain or backup sewage that you suffer in the home.
Yeah.
And one of the important things, as you mentioned, is for them to understand it is not only if you suffered damage flooding in the basement. Some homes suffered wall damage, structural damage to the walls.
Yes.
Some of them suffered structural damage to the roof, where the roof was leaking and the first floor of the homes or the ceilings of the homes suffered damage. All of that is eligible. It is not only basement flooding.
And Danielle, that brings up an interesting aspect, because in homes that I visited, I saw in one particular case, but I was told afterwards, in which people had so much water in the lower level that it was actually covering their fuse box, the electrical, and outlets. It's extremely important, and I believe this is a cost that would be reimbursed. You need to get a qualified electrician, not
Correct.
Uncle Joe who dabbles in a little bit, but a qualified electrician, because when water gets into electricals in that extent, it can do damage that you do not see and don't know. And people will say, well, I plugged in the toaster, I plugged in the washer and the dryer, and it seems to work. But what they're not aware of is that water getting into those wire systems may have very well done damage, and it requires somebody who is properly an electrician by trade to be able to diagnose that. And it's important for their own safety. We do not want to have a house fire 2-3 months down the road because of this flood problem, and they didn't anticipate. But that's something that's in the wall, and so maybe out of mind, out of sight, and those of us who are not in the building trades, if you will, might not recognize that. But I've been cautioning people who had those electric outlets, especially the fuse box in that whole area, under submerged in water for any time that they get an electrician to check to make sure that the electrical system in the house is fine.
That is absolutely correct. Please bring somebody certified, licensed. Make sure the people who are working on your home know what they're doing. We don't want, like you said, we don't want a fire 3 months down the road.
No.
We don't want a roof falling
Right.
3 months down the road. All of the people that you bring into your home should be certified and licensed, if you can.
Yeah, so that was an important point, the electrical aspect. So are there other items that you wanted to cover that may be eligible?
I believe that we covered everything. Residents should also know that a household member who is eligible must provide proof of identity, meaning that they must be. I'm going to read it to you. Is that okay if I read this?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. To be considered for disaster housing assistance, you or a household member must provide proof of identity and sign a declaration stating that they are a United States citizen, a non-citizen national, or a qualified alien.
So the point is, you must be legally in this country.
Correct.
You couldn't have snuck in through one of the borders. You're not going to get any proceeds.
Correct.
Okay, so that's an important point. And for I wouldn't want our viewers to get overly bogged down in, well, is it flood insurance? Is it an item that I'm going to file with the city or the county? The key of this is here's another source of aid, and the FEMA people will assist you and help you and know the kind of questions to ask you for aid. But you really should make yourself available of this, irrespective of who you're asking reimbursement for or what your filings are, because we know this is out here and it's going to be out here for a while, and you need to take advantage of it. That's why it's here. It's for disasters. We had a disaster. It's our federal government trying to help us out. Take advantage of it.
Correct. I agree with you completely.
Okay. Well, we tried to cover a lot, and we'll put, once again, the phone number and the website to get a hold of FEMA. And Danielle, I want to thank you, and please extend both to Summer and to Tim my deep appreciation for the assistance. Wayne County working with Congressman Dingle, so we really had the federal, the county, the state police, and locally all working together.
Absolutely.
And that was very helpful. The county helped us in the estimation of the disaster damage, and we're very appreciative of that. And we could not have gotten through this without all the various people and their assistance. And so on behalf of all the residents of Dearborn Heights, thank you for a job well done.
Thank you. And Mayor, I would like to offer our office's assistance. If any residents are having trouble registering or getting a hold of FEMA, feel free to call our office at 734-942-5289 and we'll assist you.
That's great. Thank you so much, and thank everyone out there for watching the program today, and we'll get through this together, and any assistance and help. We've given you some avenues. Please make yourself available of them, and thank you for watching another edition of the Mayor Dan Paletko Show.